and welcome back to episode number 76 of Raise the Banner podcast. One of your three co-hosts, it is the usual Zach Brewitt, Benny Ballgame Dirth, and myself, Matt Couture. Boys, how we doing?
Great.
Doing good.
I probably got the worst haircut in America, so I got to fix that this week. But otherwise, I'm good.
You go to somewhere different, or
no? I think you just had an off day.
Just an off day. I wouldn't accept that.
Yeah,
I went looking for a new.
I went at like noon on a Friday, which was probably my mistake.
Yeah, you
I've
gotta
been
go.
those Saturday morning cuts.
I've been going with the same guy since, I'm 29 now. Probably like 8 or 9 years now, and I won't leave.
I switched because the place I was going to, the guy I was getting my haircut from, he left, and so I found somewhere new. It's also half the price.
Enough.
I was going to Beverly from Waltham for like 5 or 6 years until I finally grew the hair out a bit, and then went to somewhere else.
Ben, how much do you pay?
20 plus tip.
Oh Jesus, mine's a lot more than that.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, there's a new place in the center of town. Beard lineup and a standard cut is $50.
Yeah, see, mine is he doesn't do tips. He just does a flat $50 fee.
So if you wanted to be like, yo, you crushed my hair today, and threw him like an extra $10, he'd be like, no, get out of here with your tip.
No, yeah, basically. So he was at $40, and so I used to usually toss him about $50 every time. And when he was ready to go up and needed to go up in prices, he decided instead of going up to 50 and asking people to also tip, he was like, and this is just for guys haircuts. He's not a barber. He's a more of a hairstylist, I guess. But he just did a flat $50 instead of asking for tips.
It's not bad.
Oh.
No, it's a lot of money, obviously, for a haircut, but I know I'm going to get a good cut. So, anyways, enough with the haircut talk. We got plenty of Boston sports talk to get over today. We're going to start off with the Boston Celtics. They, as I assume all of you guys know by now, choked is probably the best way to describe game one. Yep. They were up 20. It seems like they got a little bit lazy. They basically just blew a 20-point lead. They couldn't hit a three if I don't know if God came down and moved the basket a foot away. They couldn't hit a three at that point. What are your thoughts on game one? Game two is in about, hour and a half roughly. What's your confidence level there, and how are you feeling about this being down 0-1 heading into game two?
Confidence level is certainly lower this series than it was last year when they lost game one. I think there was a couple of series they lost game one at, and then they obviously came back in game two and won, and then we know how it ended up. They won the championship. The way they lost that game was certainly, it didn't install confidence. It wasn't hard fought battle and last shot Knicks came away with the win. It was, as you said, they were up 20, and then all of a sudden the Knicks started playing much better defense, and it was like they got punched in the mouth and didn't have a backup plan. Joe Mazzulla assumed that they were going to just keep shooting threes and eventually they'll hit one. 63s and what they made 15 or something like that. It was just an outrageous amount of 3-pointers for any team in the NBA to be taking. And it was clear from the start that they weren't hitting them. At one point they were 7 of 28. They said in the broadcast, with obviously 25%, shooting from three. So to have no backup plan, and if you watch them on fast breaks and everything else, there was one person down low and 4 guys around the arc. That is no way to get any sort of momentum going, because you miss a shot, which, as we saw in game one, was far more likely than not they're going to get no chance for offensive rebound, and then the Knicks are on a fast break. So I think for Joe Mazzulla to just have no backup plan was indefensible. nobody could hit shots. Derek White kept us in the game as much as he could, as he tends to do. But yeah, I mean, you said it. Like, they started playing defense, and as soon as they went up 20, it was a complete 180 from how they've always played. So going into game 2, I mean, if they have a better game plan, and if they actually play, in the low post, and if they actually play within the arc and not just have everyone behind the arc and shooting threes, then I give them a much better shot. But they have to have a better game plan. They have to have a better, attack the rim more, not just hope that this time is a better shooting game, because we saw with Cleveland, it's very easy to go down, 2-0, especially to a team that, has fight the way that the Knicks do. You can't just rely on the fact that, we have good players and probably the better roster. You have to actually go out there and execute. So hope tonight is just hope game 1 was a wake up call for game 2.
Ben, where are you?
So I mean, Zach had a lot of good points. I would say my confidence level isn't overall different than it was a few days ago. I would say, while the game's not necessarily a must win, this to me is and I'm going to steal a phrase that I heard on Zolak and Bertrand. It's a must not lose the way that you lost game 1 type of game. But, the reason my confidence really hasn't changed is the Celtics are the best road team in basketball. Granted, Orlando wasn't much of an opponent, no disrespect to them, but they showed it against Orlando. They did it all season. I want to say they were like 38-3 or something away from the Garden this year, something like that. It was something ridiculous on the road this year. Some other things. I mean, I realized that Porzingis only played, a handful of minutes. What was it, like 12, 13, 14 minutes, something like that. But he was 0 for 0 points. That's not really something I think is a trend. I know, it's playoff time. No team is fully healthy. But I know, the Celtics are, monitoring a few situations. So, you figure Porzingis, is obviously very capable of scoring. If he has a, halfway decent game, they don't lose. Again, he only played 13 minutes looking at the box score. So, take that with a grain of salt. The tough part about the game plan, because Zach, I definitely agree that they need a backup plan. The problem is I don't know if they're going to have one. And I don't know when he said this, but Mazzulla was on the record earlier this year saying that I don't even know if it was this year. It was a while ago, saying that the most important stat in basketball is 3-point shots attempted. I think it's relative. I think it's percentage of 3-point shots, not the raw number, but it's like the percentage of 3-point shots you're taking in a game. So if you look at the box score from Monday night, they were 15 of 60 from 3-point range.
Just so bad.
And overall, they only took 37 2-point shots of all types, right? Obviously, that's layups, dunks, jump shots, whatever. But so, just north of 2/3 of their shot attempts were from behind the arc. Notably, Derek White and Jason Tatum combined to go 9 of 31 from behind the arc. That's obviously not quintessential Celtics, but with Mazzulla basically being like, 3-point shot attempts percentage is a top stat to them. I don't really expect that to change. I mean, obviously they just weren't making them. I just wish that they would have, I don't want to call it awareness, I guess, that if the shots aren't falling, they have to figure out a way to do other things. I realize that they don't have true size underneath, especially when Porzingis is not healthy. He's not a true 5. Not that there's very many of those guys in the game left anyway. Horford played 34 minutes. He was the top minutes person who came off the bench. Just a down night for them, unfortunately. So knowing that they're really good on the road, great on the road, I kind of expect them to win tonight. If they win tonight, given that they lost game 1, I still kind of look at this series and go, it's probably going to go 6. I would say again, because of their ability to win on the road, going down 0-2 back to New York is not an ideal scenario because the crowd's going to be even more insane than they would be normally. But, important to go back 1-1. And, can they close it out in 5? Sure. This is exactly what happened to them in the East Finals last year against Indiana. They kind of shocked everybody and lost game 1 only to go on and win the next 4 and win the East. So certainly doable. But you definitely don't want to go down 0-2 and have to go to somebody's building regardless of how good you are on the road.
Yeah, and I mean, like, to your point, I'm fine if you're like, because the team's makeup is a 3-point shooting team, but it became evidently clear that their plan A wasn't working. So, what is your break glass in case of emergency plan? Joe didn't have one, so I agree with you. Like, there needs to be, again, not a complete shakeup of who you are as a team, but just some way of, like, 3 points aren't falling. Can we get a bit more creative, get to the mid range, get to the low post, whatever, to just try and drum up some sort of points? Because the chuck and pray is no winning formula.
Yeah, agreed.
The problem with me was they were able to get anything that they wanted that game, right? So and that's kind of how they went up 20. And so when I look at this situation being down 0-1, I think it might have been Colin Coward that I heard today basically call it the most unimportant or least impactful 1-0 win, game 1 win in the history of the NBA. And it was like, you won game 1, but you're still a far inferior team. And it took an all-time record bad night shooting from the Celtics just for you to win in overtime. And so that's the optimistic kind of spin on it that you could put, but it's also kind of the truth. It's just the truth. They were able to get whatever they want. And their biggest issue was when, New York did kind of try to punch back. They didn't respond properly in the sense that they can just get to the hoop when they want. Right. And so the Knicks were punching back, and the answer to the Celtics, what should be, is to punch back harder. And instead, they were lazy about it. They took the game clearly, for granted in the second half. They just kept heaving up threes instead of settling down the offense and getting to the hoop. And so I look at that and I say, I blame Missoula in a large sense, because that's something you need to recognize, and you need to, call timeout and enforce that in the team and saying, like, what are we doing? Like, we can get to the basket. And I know Missoula ball is live and die by the 3, but like, when it's clearly not working for you, don't just keep doing what's not working. And so it's not so much that, like, can the Celtics fix the issue? It's, are they going to simply be smart enough to fix it? And I would have to assume yes. So that's why I'm not necessarily very worried about it at all. Porzingis is, whatever is going on with him is a bit worrisome, but he seems like he'll be good to go tonight. And if he can get back to even 85% of what he usually is, I think that this series could be over in 5. Like, there isn't a scenario where, no matter really what, I'm not going to pick them to win the next game, unless Tatum or Brown or something like that goes out and gets injured. So I'm not very worried about it at this point. At this moment, I expect them to come out, guns a-blazing tonight. I think I put money on them minus 10.5, because I think that they're going to come out strong, and then they'll put them away early, and they'll actually hold on to the lead tonight. Do you guys have that same type of confidence heading into tonight, or you think it's going to be like a dogfight, close game?
No, I do. I think, game 1, like I mentioned, was sort of like a punch in the mouth game for them. I think they, like you said, they got whatever they wanted until they went up 20, and then I think they assumed that they were just going to coast until the end. their game plan felt like it was written by Dion Waiters almost, just that the famous quote of like, I'd rather go over 30 than over 9 because that means you lost confidence in shooting threes. But no, I think game 2, they'll certainly come out more tenacity, more of like a plan. And I think, like I said, they're not going to come out. And if they do go up 20 again, they now at least know that this team knows what it takes to come back from a 20-point lead. So I think there'll certainly be some adjustments made. I think they'll take the crowd will definitely be more involved and more into the game. Then I guess there was some like complaints about the crowd noise or crowd tenacity at the beginning of the game, game 1. I didn't watch the beginning of the game, but so no, I don't think it'll be a blowout by any means from either team. I do think they're still going to win in 6. But yeah, I think they win tonight. And I think it's going to be a closer game than people expect, but certainly a better planned game for sure as well.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's, one of those games where it's close and then you have your like a typical Celtics third quarter where they put the hammer down a little bit defensively and pull away late. This to me feels like a game that would be like the final score is not going to be indicative of how the game went, which I know is kind of easy to say in basketball because all it takes is 3 or 4 possessions where one team scores 3 and 4 in a row and the other team doesn't, and now a 2 or 3 point game becomes double digits very quickly. But I feel like this is going to be mostly a good game. I don't know if the Celtics are going to come out and shut them down early. I'd love to be wrong. I'd love this thing to be over by halftime and have them just slam the door in the second half, like what they should have done in game 1. Big halftime lead, big lead in the middle of the third quarter, and then you just put the hammer down and you win by 30. This feels to me like it could be anywhere from a 6-point win to a 15-point win, but I think it'll be tough for 3.5 quarters, and maybe the Celtics just having to pull away late and make it look widen the gap more than the game actually was from start to finish. But I do like them to take game 2, and like I said, you don't want to go to New York down 2-0 because that's difficult to feel like, because if you go to New York down 0-2, best case scenario, you're coming home trying to take a 3-2 lead in game 5.
This team is far too good to go down 2-0 to anybody.
Yeah.
I can't see them going down 2-0 to the Knicks, especially.
Yeah. Just to add to that, it kind of felt like how we talk about like in football, teams that win to them what's an important game because they're beating a team that they're not as good as, like, oh well, that was their Super Bowl. Like that, like last game 1 kind of felt like that to the Knicks, that was their like, oh yeah, wow, like we came back and stole a game from from the Celtics, but to Matt's point, like it took a I don't want to say all time, but it took a historic second half collapse because of a terrible shooting night to win by 3 in overtime. Like when you add all those things up, it's like, it's not like it was a close game and the Celtics went cold and the Knicks were in a close game and got hot and blew the doors off of Boston. Like they won by 1 possession because the Celtics couldn't score in the last 20 minutes of the basketball game. So, like Matt said, it feels like there were so many things that had to go wrong for the Celtics to lose, that, I think it was kind of like an emotional jolt for the Knicks to feel like, oh, like we stole one, but I expect good things out of game 2.
Well, that's why I think, like I said, I think it was Coward that made the comment. It was like it's the least impactful 1-0 lead that ever experienced or ever saw, because like everyone expects the Celtics to take care of business. And on top of that, again, like you just said, it's not like the Knicks came out and like outplayed them and controlled the game and looked like the better team. No, like the Celtics just looked horrible. The Celtics are not going to shoot 15 for 60 again. They're not going to go cold so badly in the fourth quarter that, it took to go to overtime, to beat them. Yeah. So full expectations is the Celtics take care of business and they win this series. I think 5 games is fully on the table. I think 6 games is the limit. And if they happen to lose tonight, I still see it going like at least 7 games. And by at least, I mean like at least the Celtics bring it to 7 games. And so just at full expectations, they're just the far better team. So there's no excuse on and even without Porzingis, they should beat this team.
Right,
The biggest
they should have won game 1 with Porzingis going literally over in 13 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is they should win despite even without Porzingis. But if Porzingis is going to be on the floor, he has to be playing well. You know what I mean? If he's on the floor and playing like dog shit, well, then it hurts. It hurts the team because someone else could be playing better than him.
Yeah, it isn't like the Cavs where they're down 2 or 3 of their biggest stars. You're down. Porzingis is always he's injury prone. If you're relying on him to give you 40 minutes a night, it's just a recipe for failure. So, but again, he's not as bad as going over. He's certainly not. He's kind of right in that middle point of like he's not a bench player by any means. But again, he's not someone you just have to watch him and watch his health. So who is going to step up in his absence or when he's on the bench? Is it a Hauser? Is it a Cornet? I think Cornet's out if I read that right, or at least doubtful.
Hauser's out with
Hauser's out.
And I think it's an ankle injury.
Yeah, is that from the foul on?
Yeah,
I think it was.
Without Hauser, it's a hit to their bench, but they have enough guys, I think, that can pick up the slack. And they have a very, very strong top 7.
Yeah.
And when push comes to shove, that doesn't even include Hauser. Hauser's, they're number 8.
Yeah.
When push comes to shove, they are just the far superior team to the Knicks. So even without Hauser, they should obviously win. And like I said, as long as Porzingis is playing okay, they should beat this team. You just can't have Porzingis out there and barely getting up and down the court because he's sick or whatever the hell's going on with him. And then shooting 0 for 7.5 and then stuff like that. That's how you actually hurt the team and you take away from the positive impacts that the other players are bringing on the court. So so what's up?
I was just going to say on KP, I was just looking at the injury report. He was present for the shoot around, so he should be available. I guess he came out of the game with an illness. It wasn't like an injury. I had missed that. And yeah, Sam Hauser is doubtful for the game tonight. I don't know who really steps up in his absence, but again, like he's the 8th or 9th guy off the bench anyway.
Yeah.
So, they played 9 guys. So Hauser, Horford, Cornet, and Pritchard were the 4 guys who played off the bench. And Horford practically played like a starter because Porzingis came out of the game unexpectedly, I think, in the second quarter.
Yeah, they lack a little bit of backcourt depth, front court depth when Porzingis isn't there. I mean, it's really Porzingis, Horford, and Cornet. Like that's the primarily. Like, obviously, Tatum's got some size, so like he can help a little bit back there, but they're just so much better than this team.
Yeah.
And no offense to the Knicks, but like they're just the definition of a good, not great team. Like
they gave up their identity last year for the Cat trade. Like they had, they sold their soul for Cat, and they don't have as much depth as they had last year. So like I agree, they're the far better team.
Even that, like, and when I say they're good, not like this is a team that they have some good players.
Yeah.
But they don't really. I mean, Brunson's like. Don't get me wrong. Brunson's really good. Cat's a really good player, but like neither of them are elite, in my opinion. They're both very good players, but not that elite tier. And then behind them, like they just really don't have too much.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you go up against a team that has, in my opinion, 2 elite players, and then. I mean, when Porzingis is on, he's elite. Like when he's healthy and playing how he's supposed to be, he's elite. And then we know White and Holiday can both be very, very, very good, and we know Horford could be good, and God forbid Pritchard gets hot. Like, you know what I mean? So they're just a far superior team, and to face a team like this with the Knicks, it's not really a matter of like, are the Knicks going to beat them? It's, are the Celtics going to lose the game? And so that's the only scenario in which I see them losing this series is if this stuff continues like they did in game one, where they just can't shoot and they're not making the adjustments. And I can't see it happen. We see in a series like the better teams, they'll have an off night, and the inferior team will steal a game. But like, push comes to shove, like I can't see a world in where the Knicks beat them 4 out of 7 games. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they totally did. That's exactly what happened. The Knicks didn't necessarily beat us in game one. We gave it away. And to your point, they're not going to give 4 games away. Like they're too good of a team from a talent point of view, and they're far too good of a team from a coaching point of view. Even though I just kind of bagged on Mazzulla for not having the plan B. He is a far too good of a coach to, as I said, allow his team to just hand the game away 4 times. So, if they lose, it's a catastrophic, collapse from a.
We talked about failures. Like, if they lose to the Knicks, like that's a kind of bad. That's the peak of failures. I guess if they lost to the Magic, it was peak failure. But like, this would still be pretty close.
You're going to get from
this still feels like peak failure if they don't pull this out.
I do want to transition into a little bit of Red Sox talk. Well, I don't really want to, but we need to. There's not a lot of positives to talk about the Boston Red Sox right now. Obviously, before the season, we were optimistic. They've gone through a bunch of ups and downs so far. We're approaching just about the 25% way into the season. They're sitting at, I believe it's 18-19. Their pitching has been shaky. Their bullpen has been shaky. Their lineup has been shaky. Tristan Casas goes down. I believe it was like Friday of last week, something like that. So, where are you guys on the Boston Red Sox right now? Are you in panic mode? Where's your panic meter 1 through 10, and what's your overall thoughts?
Well, panic would ensue that the expectations were sky high after the past 4 years. They had been raised, but they've been raised to, I'd say, tepid versus like anything, great. But I think, where we saw the Sox, like pitchers, especially last year, shine in the first half was, Bailey's, approach. He had kind of gone away from the fastball. And it was Craig Breslow's approach too, going away from the fastball and introducing more sweepers, more breaking pitches, more off speed stuff. And part of that was Breslow talked about, well, the hardest thrown pitch is a fastball, which means the hardest hit pitch is obviously a fastball for home runs, which is true. But also he said, like, you kind of want to get hitters off their game, become more unpredictable than other pitchers. Well, the problem with that is when that's your entire identity, then you become predictable the other way. So people are now sitting on, curveballs and sitting on breaking pitches, and in the off chance that you do throw a fastball, it can get hit too. So they're becoming a bit too predictable, especially with like Tanner Houck, for example. He is a shell of himself. Last night, Giolito, kind of a 2-pitch repertoire, fastball at 91 and then change up. So the pitching, I think as a whole, I don't know where to go with that. You can't like reinvent your entire pitching in a, mid-season, I don't think, but the team itself is too good to be under 500, especially this time of year. I was pretty adamant about, I liked the idea of keeping, Cedar Rafaela in the lineup just for his glove alone. As much as I wasn't a huge fan of Jackie Bradley. His glove was obviously elite, despite his shortcomings at the plate. And you saw like in the playoffs, he could absolutely steal games and win games. So I wanted to keep the same sort of mentality for Sadon, but it is certainly time to bring up at least Roman Anthony. And I don't know where you're going to put Meyer, but at some point you have to make the switch to bring him up too. And the last piece I'll say on it is I talked about it before, but like at which point does Cora come into focus? As it's been the same issues year over year with them. The pitching and defense, the lineup, he wants to sit guys. I get that, and kind of give them their rest, whether it's full off day with no pinch runners or whatever. But like after 4 years of really the same thing, he has to come into focus as well. So a lot of good things to take from the offseason. Again, they're too good of a team, going back to teams being too good to be where they are. They're too good of a team to finish the year under 500. I certainly don't expect them to finish the year under 500. At some point, I think they'll figure it out. At least I hope they do. But first base is now open. Pitching is, again, becoming predictable. So I don't know where to go with that. If you're bringing like a couple other pitchers who can, throw fastballs, whatever. But first base, I know Rizzo's been talked about on radio too. So panic mode is not fully set in, but it's certainly climbing.
Ben?
Yeah, I would say, you said on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm kind of at like a 3.5. I went back and I looked, and I mean, obviously year to year is so different in baseball, but a year ago, the Red Sox were sitting at 19-16 through 35 games. I know that there are a couple of games ahead of that, 18-19. I would say like the concerning piece are the injuries. To Zach's point, there's enough talent on this team that I think that they can certainly turn it around. Not to mention the fact that the American League East now versus a year ago is significantly worse. The Red Sox at a game under 500 are 2 games out of the division, 2.5 games back of the division lead.
Just wild.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, it is.
So
the Orioles, they would have been like 8 games back of the Orioles at this point last year.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So yeah, the Orioles at this point last year were 23-11. The Sox are 2.5 back of the Yankees. We're sitting at 20-16. So the American League East being where it is why, like, I don't like big picture. I'm not panicking yet, because it's not like they're digging themselves a hole in May that they can't dig out of come August and September. They've lost 3 in a row. I think they've lost 5 of their last 7. So they're not trending in the right direction. But just given the state of the American League, especially the American League East, like I don't think they're not really digging a hole that they may not be able to climb out of. The injuries are the biggest thing for me. Walker Buehler goes on the DL with shoulder inflammation. Hits doubly hard because he's on my fantasy team this year. And he started to look like he was starting to figure it out. He had first couple starts were rough, but his last 2 or 3 have been really good. So he was certainly trending in the right direction. Of course, Casas goes down, just banging knees off the first baseman, because like how does that happen in Major League Baseball? So he's done.
You don't exactly see a lot of knee injuries in the MLB.
Yeah.
Not the way that he suffered his.
But I mean, how many ACL tears do you see in the MLB? I know it wasn't that, but like tendons, ACLs. Like,
it's not common. It usually requires some kind of a collision, or a guy runs into the wall and hits it awkwardly, and his knee bends in an odd position.
Shoulder, broken
arm,
hand because you get hit by a pitch, or it hamstrings.
Or if you're Mike Trout, you sneeze too hard. But
puncture a lung.
The injuries are obviously concerning. Like obviously Casas being done for the year, they need to figure out first base sooner rather than later. Romy Gonzalez is a really nice guy, but he's not a long-term solution at first. He's a decent depth bench guy. I don't really know what their solution is. They certainly have, if they really wanted to move somebody in a trade and go get a first baseman, I suppose that's viable. Or, if you go do something that, you can You can have flex.
Arenado.
Yeah, let's go trade for Nolan Arenado, who
Who said that?
who's only ever played third base.
I would have zero worries about him playing first. Absolutely zeros.
So I would 100 times out of 100 put Devers at first over trading for Arenado and moving him to first base.
Yeah, well, we can get into that too, but until that seems to be happening.
Correct, and that doesn't seem to be an option. I don't see the Red Sox making a splash of a trade to figure out first base. Hitting in general. I don't know why they're still sitting on Roman Anthony at AAA. It seems to me. I was talking to a buddy of mine about this last week. Zach, you brought up the whole JBJ thing. So JBJ. We could stick him at the bottom of the lineup and kind of put up with it because he was an elite center fielder.
Mm-hmm.
Like Rafaela is like kind of the same player, but he's not an elite defensive player. And he's not as good of a hitter. He's not he's not a terrible hitter, but his defense in center field, in my opinion, is not so good that you just have to put up with the fact that he's not going to hit himself out of a paper bag.
His defense is really good. It's not JBJ good.
Correct.
It's not elite.
No.
Elite defense.
Like you're not banging the door for him to win the Gold Glove, Platinum Glove, and you're not pissed that someone else won it over him. You're just damn, that's a really good player.
Yeah. And I don't know why they have some aversion to putting Jarren Duran back in center and then calling up Anthony to play left or right and put Abreu in left. I don't know how you want to figure it out. I don't love how the Major League Baseball metric is being used to dictate Gold Glove Award winners. But that aside, Jarren Duran was a Gold Glove finalist in center field last year, which, he had to have been very, very good at whatever it is Major League Baseball cares about now for metrics to be a top 3 defensive center fielder last year. So again, he's a very good, not elite center fielder, but he's far and away a liability. Like you're not better off with Rafaela in center and Duran in left. Like I will not die on that hill. Like Duran would be more that could you argue that he's maybe not, he's a notch or two below Rafaela's defensive ability in center? Like maybe you'd really have to dig into the deep peripheral stats to make that argument. But even if he's worse than Rafaela, it's not a liability in center. There's no reason, in my opinion, why Anthony should be rotting away in Worcester. He has total of 70 games in AAA-ish, like in that neighborhood between last year and this year, and he is annihilating anything anybody throws at him at the AAA level. So there's no reason he should be down there. You brought up Marcelo Mayer. It's kind of tough for me to feel like they have to bring him up because, in my opinion, it's like, well, what do you do with him? Because he really only plays middle infield. Like, could he possibly play third? Sure, but you have a guy at third. So I think he's just a victim of circumstance where they're letting Campbell figure out at second. He looks better and better every day, and you're not doing anything with Trevor Story. So it's like you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place with Marcelo because there's not a spot for him unless he rolls out of bed tomorrow and figures out how to be a first baseman. But the Roman Anthony thing to me at this point is inexcusable. Like there is no reason why he should be down there. The only thing I can think of is that for whatever reason, Alex Cora just refuses to put Duran back in center field. And that to me is the only reason why Anthony's not here because there's no reason why Rafaela should still be in the lineup at this point.
Yeah. So I'm going to, oddly enough, I'm going to be probably the least, most pessimistic about this whole situation. My panic meter is at a 5. And it's because I guess you could put a little bit it on Alex Cora and you could put it on Craig Breslow and whoever's making some of these roster decisions and in-game lineup decisions and stuff like that. Here's the matter of the fact. The best Red Sox lineup in the Major League includes Roman Anthony.
Yes.
The best Red Sox lineup probably includes Marcelo Mayer. Right. And I know it's not super simple to get them both into the lineup right now. The best Red Sox lineup right now includes Rafael Devers getting off his fucking ass and playing first base. And now I didn't expect him, Cassis gets hurt on whatever it was Friday and Devers is there on Saturday. Like, he should be working out every day at first base with the intent that he's going to be the first baseman in the next week or so. And maybe he's, doing some work on the side and we don't know that. But that's just the matter of the fact. And so for them to dick around with, the fans and all these little things, and this has been, and why I put it on Cora a little bit, because this has been an issue for years now, where there's been so many times where we're like, this needs to happen. And the answer always is like, well, not right now, not yet. We need to get all these bench players time, or we need to take our time and let them develop a little bit longer. The truth of the matter is this: David Hamilton seems like a great guy. Romy Gonzalez seems like a great guy. They're bench players. That's all they are, right? That's all they are for this team, and that's all they should be. The best lineup for the Boston Red Sox includes Duran in center field leading off, right? You can mix around whether you want Bregman or Campbell or Devers in this 2 spot, but let's just say for like how it usually is, Devers at first base in the 2 spot. You got Bregman at third in the 3 spot. In the 4 spot, I mean, like, there's not like a clear guy with Casas being gone, but I really don't care. That's why personally I would put Campbell in the 2 spot and then push Bregman and Devers down a spot. But put Campbell. I would put Campbell in the 2 spot. Put him in left field, right? Put him in left field.
So you probably didn't see my hand because of the stupid green screen background. Campbell is hitting cleanup tonight.
Yeah, so I mean that seems they're just mixing what I was saying. But all right, Devers in the 2 spot at first base, Bregman in the 3 spot at third base. Campbell should be playing left field with Duran in center. So Campbell batting 4th. Roman Anthony can be playing either DH or right field in batting 5th. Abreu, right field or DH, batting 6th. Trevor Story, shortstop or DH if you want, batting 7th. Marcelo Mayer playing second base, batting 8th or DH. They have the flexibility to move all these guys around. They can all rotate at DH. They can all get a day off. Yep. You know what I mean? Like the whole outfield can rotate day off. You can give Campbell a DH day. You can give Abreu, Roman Anthony, Mayer, Story. You could give them all DH days. You can even give Bregman a DH day and throw Mayer over at third. I would be fine with that. And then you have, Navarez and Wong or whatever hitting last and playing catcher. Like, that's the best lineup. And so when we talk about like all this, you got to get Hamilton time. You got to get Romy Gonzalez time. Why?
No, we don't.
Why? No, you don't. And like, you could give them and rotate them time and give some players some day offs. But you only have that luxury if A, you're playing well and the starters are playing well, and B, you don't have a bunch of other fucking holes in the lineup, right? Like, so Devers isn't hitting that well. Story isn't hitting well right now. Rafaela never hits that well. Casas is out. So, like, you can't tell me you can't put Abraham Toro at first base, and then Rafaela's hitting like shit, and Devers and Story aren't hitting well, and then you're also giving days off. Oh, Bregman's going to come out for the day, and then we're gonna toss someone over at third, because Roman Gonzalez at third, or we're going to give Campbell the day off and put Hamilton at second. And then you put out like just straight dog shit lineups because of it.
Yep.
It's like you only have this luxury when things are going well when your team's playing well, when the momentum's going up. Sure, you can give these guys a little extra time. If things are going well, you can do that. When things are going shit, you don't continue down the same path. And that's why I'm a little pissed off at Alex Cora. That's why I'm a little pissed off at Breslow. If that's who's the person saying, no, we're not bringing Anthony up, or we're not bringing Mayer up. But, like, I'm sick of dicking around with this team. Like, you're 18 and 19. I understand like they have the luxury, like you said, Ben, like they're only 2 games out of first. So like they're lucky to only be 2 games out of first right now. They could easily be 6, 7, 8 games already.
Mm-hmm.
The matter that like the fact of the matter is that like this has been happening for years where they Cora just like wants to play buddy with everybody, wants to get everybody like fair playing time. Like this isn't freshman baseball. This isn't JV baseball where like everyone needs to get playing time. Like you play little league baseball where like everybody's got to play at least 2 innings or like, you know what I mean? Like this is freaking ridiculous. Get your head out of your asses, play the best players, get Roman Anthony up into the majors, get Marcelo Mayer up into the majors. Like play your best players. And that doesn't even, you know, I don't want to go too long on this, but that includes the rotation too. Like we can trust Crochet. Bayo's been pretty good. Bueller's obviously hurt. Fitz is hurt right now. Like if Giolito's sucking, get his ass back on the DL. Like and I'm not saying just one bad start, you know, dump him back into DL or whatever. But like if you're someone in your rotation isn't pitching well, get their ass out of the rotation. You got guys like Hunter Dobbins that are coming up here and fighting every game. Like he's earned that he's earned a spot to be in the major league conversation. You have Richard Fitz, who looked pretty damn good before he got hurt. You have Crawford, who I don't know, God knows when he's coming back. But like, I'm just sick and tired of this whole dilly-dallying around and games that shouldn't be lost. And you know, we're going to be in mid-June, and the team's going to be 1 game over 500, but they really should be 6, 7 games over 500. But because they wanted to play nice guy, you know, they're costing themselves games. And
No, I mean, Cora's whole thing is I'm a player's coach, do what the players want. Well, to your point, at what point does that become detrimental to the actual results on the field? And you're there. Like the team isn't good enough. The players you're putting in as a replacement to the best lineup, the best, you know, on the field aren't good enough to be starters. Like Roman Gonzalez, David Hamilton, these guys, Rob Refsnyder will throw in there too. They're guys who are there when, God forbid, someone goes down during a game. You put them in as a defensive replacement and then you call up Roman Anthony in the outfield the day after. You need someone to pinch hit because someone, you know, you want to play the lefty righty game, fine. You go bring up a David Hamilton for righty lefty matchup. Like they're not guys you start because guys need, you know, Bregman needs a blow or you know, Willie Abreu said, hey, I don't want to play on Sundays or whatever the case. Like they're just not good enough. And there comes a point, kind of the same thing you saw with Devers. Oh, he doesn't want to play. We'll come to him when, you know, we feel like he's ready to play first base. No, he's getting fucking $30 million a year. You put the best put the best team and the best players in the best positions to win. And if they don't like it, that sucks. Like get over it.
Well, that's the conversation.
Fucking buddy.
We heard this like conversation between Devers and Cora. Like it seems like Cora came out and didn't rule it out, but like then this talk that like maybe they want Devers to approach them and Devers wants the team to approach him, and it's like, dude, like this isn't
who's running the
like
fucking show.
Junior high. Like this isn't junior high. Like Cora should be going to Devers and saying, like, we're gonna try you out at first base. And unless Devers is like throwing a goddamn hissy fit, like get him practice time at first base and plan to play him at first base. Because the second you do that, it opens up flexibility within the lineup tremendously. Tremendously. Because then Yoshida could even come back. And like we know Yoshida's not a good defender, but Yoshida's a good major league hitter.
Mm-hmm.
Like he may not hit 30 dingers, but he's going to bat 275, 280 minimum, bare minimum. Give you good at bats, not strike out a ton, and just be an all-around solid MLB hitter. So at bare minimum, that's what you can add to this team. And if you do that, you replace right now Turo, let's just say, but even Casas, because he sucked when he was playing. You replace that with Yoshida, who, if we assume what he can be from prior years, that's an immediate upgrade. Right? Like that's an immediate upgrade versus what Casas was giving us. So I'm so sick of this. Like someone gets like a freaking hamstring injury. Like the Giolito shit pissed me off because he was like, oh, there was talk like in spring training he wasn't even going to miss opening day, like he was going to be on the active roster, and then he missed an entire month of the season. It's like I don't get how someone has like a tiny tweak to the hamstring and they're automatically out for like 5 weeks. Like I just don't get it.
Cora lets the team run the show, and it's like, dude, you're the fucking manager. Man up.
And this just goes back to like my anger with some of the other things. It's like, dude, like get your ass back on the field.
Yeah.
Like you don't need Giolito was fine to go probably like the week after week 1. And then they have him go do like 4 AAA outings. And like every time you do that, like you want 3 AAA outings, boom, there's 15 days. There's 2 weeks that he's gone. Like the season is a long ass season, but it's not that long.
No,
you know what I mean?
He's acting like 2018 is his, golden ticket. It's like you had the best team, the best roster in Major League Baseball. You should have won a World Series in your first year. And it wasn't like you came back and ran it back. You missed the playoffs the next year, got your ass fired the next year because you couldn't stop cheating. And then you came back and, you got a little lucky in 2021. And then you've missed 3 straight years. You're not a good enough manager to be dicking around with a lineup like this and letting your team call the shots. Like at some point you are on the hot seat. And I think it's coming now. I mean, I said it last time, like you missed 4 out of your 6 years you've been here. You've missed the playoffs, and now a quarter of the way into the year, you're already under 500. You're lucky that you're 2.5 games out of first place because you're under 500, and we're midway into May.
The really question for me and when we talk about Cora's performance over the years is when has this team ever overperformed?
Never. He's the opposite of Brad Stevens.
2013.
With Cora,
okay, that wasn't with Cora. Like maybe 2020,
2021 they overperformed. I think
a little bit. Like they had a solid team. They overperformed maybe a little bit.
Yeah,
but like since then, the rosters haven't been great. Don't get me wrong, but they've never overperformed.
No,
I'm just sick. I don't know where he just went, but
I don't either. I wanted to go back to a point you made. Like we talked about the Red Sox being lucky that they're 2.5 games out of first, and like that's almost also a point of frustration because it's like you're only 2.5 games out of first. You should be doing everything possible to take advantage of the fact that you're not being buried in the American League East in the early part of May. Zach, welcome back. I was just saying, like to Matt's point about them only being 2.5 games out and that being lucky, like they should be taking advantage of that and investing in this team now because you're not buried in the American League East in the first week in May. You're still within striking distance of the division lead. The American League as a whole is down. And, like the Cora Breslow thing to me is 50-50. So like Cora's job, obviously, right, is to do the best with the team that he has. So it's like I give him a pass on Roman Anthony and Marcelo Mayer not being here because he's not making the decisions on whether they're with the club or they're down in the minors. However, it is up to him to dictate day-to-day game operations. And like, I understand that we're going to see a little bit of lineup turnover because they have to figure out like what's going to work best now that Costas isn't in that like 4 or 5 spot on a nightly basis. So fine, tinker with it, figure out what works. But like we can't dick around too long because at some point the Yankees are going to figure it out and go on a little bit of a hot streak. And they may regret not taking advantage of the fact that they're only 2.5 games out on May 7th because 2 weeks from now, it could be 6 or 7 games. We're hovering around 500. The Yankees went on, a decent win streak. And now it's like, well, shit, well, now we got to play catch up and it's, the end of May. And now you're not sure what you're going to do. And all the media pundits are going to be like, what exactly is this team doing? It's clear that Alex Cora would appear to be untouchable. Like you talk about the hot seat, but obviously they forced Breslow to take him as a manager. Now, whether or not they like each other, who knows? We can only assume so much. Mm-hmm. But they've clearly said that the ownership in this case has clearly said Alex Cora is our manager, and anybody that interviews for GM has to accept the fact that they're not going to get to hire their own guy. probably played a little bit into their GM search or president of baseball officer, whatever they're calling it, the chief baseball officer search from a couple years ago. Obviously Breslow was fine with it. They got to get along. So, it's partly on him because Breslow is very capable of being like, yeah, stay down. Rafaela wouldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. Like, we need to figure out a different situation in the outfield, and then put the pressure on Cora to be like, I know you don't love Duran in center field, but Duran in center, Roman Anthony in left, and Abreu in right is a significantly better combined effort defensively and offensively than what you're currently doing with Duran in left, Rafaela center, and Abreu in right. Like, you are significantly upgrading. But so that's why to me that to me is why it's 50-50. Like, I get the core thing, but to a degree, and again, a small pass, there's only so much he can do with figuring out, the best lineup to do. But however, I think he's tinkering a little too much. Like, find the thing that works and roll with it, and then be like, yo, Breslow, like, you got to get me better offense. We got to figure this out. Like, you have to go find me better players. I don't care if you want to call up Roman Anthony, because I mean, he was so good the first six weeks of the season. He usurped Roki Sasaki universally as the number one prospect in baseball. He's
my issue with him
number one.
Is like you said, it's like Breslow puts the team together, but he has day-to-day operation. Like, at what you have to stop being a pushover to all your players and letting them run the show. I said it 100 times on my broken record today, but like,
yep,
he's like, you're almost intentionally not putting the best team on the field, because
not almost, just directly
straight up intensely.
Right, he's managing as if he knows that he's not going to get fired.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of my issue with this, and you kind of hit it on the head, Ben, when you talked about that. Cora is basically untouchable. Like, he's been here. You have had the same manager through 3 GMs, CBOs, whatever you want to call it. That's literally unheard of.
Yeah.
Like, that does not happen. And so when you talk about day-to-day operations, it's pretty clear, at least to me, like, Breslow doesn't have the ability to go to Cora and say, this is what's happening, right? You know what I mean? Like, because he clearly, Breslow hasn't been given that type of power over Cora, but of course not. Like, when you come into a situation and the owners are telling you that Cora is going to be the guy, and he's been here through 2 guys that are fired, but he wasn't fired, that's a clear sign of Cora borderline has more power than Breslow.
Yeah. And those 2 PBOs, CBOs were the ones that were forced to keep Alex Cora. Dombrowski hired him, got fired 2 years later, and then they forced him on Bloom, and they forced him on Breslow. Not forced him. I mean, sort of. That sounds really aggressive, but they basically were like, if you want this job, part of taking this job is you have to. Exactly. You can't kick Cora out the door. He's the manager.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm not saying Cora is like a bad manager, like or a bad coach altogether, but like the fact of the matter is, like, they have an issue, and I would guess that it's Cora that's making these decisions when it comes to, like, Anthony not being called up, because the truth is, if Anthony gets called up and Mayer gets called up, that means guys like David Hamilton, guys like Romy Gonzalez, Snyder,
that's a good point.
Get pushed out the door. And I think that he has a really good relationship, especially with David Hamilton, and he doesn't want to do these things. And so, when we talk about not putting the best lineup on there and not putting your best foot forward, well, I think it's very safe to say the Red Sox are not putting their best foot forward to win baseball games right now. Because if they were doing so, Roman Anthony would be in the major league lineup, and probably Marcelo Mayer would be in the major league lineup. So I'm at that point, and we don't have to keep going in circles, but like, I'm at that point where it's boiling from like a little bit annoyed to frustrated to I'm getting sick of it. I'm pissed off about it, because what's the goal? What is the ultimate goal here? Like, to be nice?
Feels like it's more to do right by your boys than it is to win baseball games. And I'm like, I don't care about your friends.
No.
And don't get me wrong. I like Romy. Like, Ben and I met Romy last year. He's a good guy. Like,
Sure, he's a great kid. But
he shit on Nick Pivetta, like it was funny, like, and
sure
but
he's
like
great.
the matter of the fact, like the fact of the matter is, he's a bench player. He should not be
Yeah.
playing full time, even with Costas being gone. Like they need to make decisions, and for the first time in, I don't know, in years, like let's prioritize winning baseball games.
Yeah, and
That
Matt,
is what matters.
yeah, and you raised a good point with the how the influence that Cora might have over Anthony and Mayer, because you came at it from an angle that I hadn't considered, with the idea that the lineup is his. He dictates who plays where, lineup, defense, how many days, and whatnot. Maybe that's more of an issue than we think it is, right? Because we can sit here and say, well, black and white, like Breslow makes the decision on who gets called up and sent down, but then the other side of that coin is, well, he can call up Roman Anthony, but is he really going to call up Roman Anthony and then call Alex Cora into his office and be like, hey, I know the lineup's yours, but Roman Anthony better be playing 2/3 to 3/4 of the rest of the season. Figure it out and get over yourself. Like, Breslow doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. Like, obviously that's not something I think Cora would really accept. I think that would really rub him the wrong way, but it's a valid point to say, like, what if Breslow calls him up and Cora goes, he doesn't like it. Cora's stance is that the Red Sox are not a better team with him with Duran in center and Roman Anthony and Abreu in the corners. Like, what if he really believes that? What if he really
and you fire him?
It's right. It's irrational, but that comes back to ownership has basically said he's untouchable because he's been forced on now 2 chief baseball officers. So it's what if he really, what if he's gone to Breslow and been like, hey, like, I know Roman Anthony's killing it, but the data says that our current defensive line, now obviously this is pre-Costas injury, right? That the current defensive lineup says that this is the best way to win baseball games, because if we forecast the rest of the season, the computer spits out, based on the formula, spits out a result that we're a better team with our team as it is, and Roman Anthony not in the outfield because his bat doesn't offset the change in defensive ability. Like, what if he went to Breslow and Breslow's like, what am I going to do? Call up my best player and watch him rot on the fucking bench? Well, I don't know how much that's happening, but that's a legit angle that I hadn't really considered.
Yeah, well, that's the question that and I guess you guys can give your opinion, is if Breslow goes to Cora and says, I want Anthony up there and I want him playing as a full-time player, does Cora have the power to say no?
I mean, I would say
that he doesn't. I mean, that he does have the power.
I was going to say, on the surface, I would say yes, but I would be really hard pressed to believe, despite the fact that he's in ownership's pocket, I would find it hard to believe that if Breslow went to Cora and said, hey, like, the offense needs a jolt, I really don't think Rafaela's defense is good enough that we can overcome the weakness in the lineup. Like, we're calling up Roman Anthony. He's the next great Red Sox, for the next 10 to 15 years. I'd be really hard pressed to believe that they wouldn't tell Cora that he has to play Roman Anthony some way, somehow. And when I say they, I mean ownership and the GM, ownership and Breslow. Go to Cora and say, hey, we understand that you have your own way of doing things, but we're, and pretend it happens today. Like, we're a game under 500. We're still within striking distance of the Yankees. The Yankees have their own issues they're dealing with, because basically the only person on that team that can do anything right is Aaron Judge. Like, if they didn't have Aaron Judge, they'd be 10 games under 500. It's crazy what he's doing, right? But it's crazy that we're still within this striking distance. Like, I'd be hard pressed to believe that they would just be like, yeah, okay, like, you called up Roman Anthony, but we're hands off. Cora decides who's going to play where defensively and how the lineup's going to shake out, because he's got the best pulse on the locker room. He's got the best pulse on who's hitting well and who needs a day off, and who needs to go suck their thumb on a boba tea in the corner on a Tuesday. Like, I'd be hard pressed to think that they would just sit on their hands and let Cora decide that Roman Anthony shouldn't be playing damn near every single game. Like, and I don't know, maybe that's just me, because I feel like I'm a pretty, sensible, logical thinker when it comes to like what is the best lineup we can have. And I sit here and go, like, if the three of us, like, no disrespect to us, like if the three of us, solid Red Sox fans who pay attention can look at this and go, Roman Anthony makes this team way better. How does the front office, ownership, and the manager not also see it? Like, what is standing in the way of them doing that?
Yeah. Well, that goes back to the question I've always thought is, if the majority of a fan base has an opinion on something,
Yes, they should get to vote on the lineup card.
No.
I
How often are they really wrong?
That's a good question.
See, like, not to give you the politician's answer, but I feel like it really depends on what faction of the Red Sox fan base you're polling and asking that question to. Because, if you are talking about the Millikins, the Carabases, like, as annoying as he is, the Maseratis, like, as annoying as he can be, he's wildly intelligent, above the average baseball player. No disrespect to Maz if you think he's annoying or not, but if you're asking that faction of the fan base that cares, that invests in the team from a financial standpoint, from a 2.5 hours on game day standpoint, like, I could sit here confidently say that they're right 75-80% of the time. But if you were to go to a random game at Fenway on a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday night and ask all 37,000 fans that walk in that stadium, I bet you most of them would be wrong.
Yeah, I'm more talking about like big picture things, like Roman Anthony's like a decent example of that. Like, it's time to bring him up.
Yeah, the casual fan's going to be like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, I think like
no, but our phrase. The majority of like at least mildly educated, like, baseball
like tapped in fans,
team
whatever,
fans.
Yeah,
I would clueless and casual fans.
Yeah, the non-pink hats. I would say yes, 75, 80% of the time, I would say that they're correct. I would say that they're at least
of the fans who know who Roman Anthony is.
Yes,
every one of them is going to say bring him up.
Right,
and I don't know how many that is, but
most of those people are going to say, yeah, call him up and sit Rafaela's ass on the bench, and you move Duran to center.
Yeah.
That goes back to the conversation of like, I would like someone to and Cora's never going to give a direct answer, so it's kind of useless, but just straight up ask him, why is Roman Anthony not in the Major League lineup every day?
Because I like David Hamilton more.
Yeah, you can't look at, like, Alex Cora can't look in the camera and give an answer that's not bullshit at this point, that explains why Romy Gonzalez, David Hamilton, Abraham Toro, like Ceddanne Rafaela are getting at bats over Roman Anthony.
I can tell you exactly what he would say.
Well, it's going to be bullshit, but yeah, I mean, I can guess what he'll say.
I mean, I know what he'll say. He'll sit there and say, and technically his answer is correct, technically, but he would sit there and say that the personnel decisions of the roster of this team are made by Chief Baseball Officer Craig Breslow. So it would be something to that effect, with a no comment of, it would be no comment. It would be, well, we leave those decisions up to Craig Breslow. He's the operations guy. He is the one who's in charge of deciding what 26 players are the best fit on this major league roster to win us baseball games. And obviously, the BS component to that is Alex Cora the follow-up is, well, are you going to sit there and tell us that you're not in that room helping him make those decisions? Because obviously Breslow and him have to decide, okay, what combination of the 26 best players is that? Like, what's that combination look like? Because
long story short, what you just explained was a bullshit answer of what I said. Like, it's a bullshit answer.
Well, the issue with that too is, like Felger always says, the journalists now, they're like too buddy with the Red Sox anyways, so they would never ask a hard-hitting question like that. They would say something of the effect of why, like, why do you love like it would be more to like channel the focus towards David Hamilton, Roman Gonzalez, those guys versus away from them.
Yeah.
Because they don't like to ask hard hitting questions anymore. I mean,
Nope.
it's
And
it's not wrong, but
No.
it's annoying.
And I don't know if it has as much to do with him trying to keep up his relationship with the players as it is. I really think at his core, he just doesn't want Duran playing center. And the issue with that is I don't know why. Like I get that he is a good, not great center. He's a good, not great center fielder, and I get that. He is not an elite defensive center fielder. While I get that Fenway is a unique center field, in the 2025 iteration of Major League Baseball, do you really need elite defense in the outfield anymore? Like when guys are either hitting home runs or striking out, how important is elite high-end defense in center at Fenway anymore? Like up and down the lineup, how many on an average Major League lineup, how many of those guys are hitting north of 250? You know, like you turn the clock back 20 years and 7 guys would be hitting over 250 and 4 of those guys would be over 300. So it's like in today's iteration of the game, I feel like elite defense in the outfield is maybe not as important as it was 15, 20 years ago because guys just aren't putting the ball in play at nearly at the same level as they are.
Now it's more strikeout home run. Like it's all about the long ball, not
right.
You know, put the ball in play and see what happens. But you know, again, we don't need to go in circles here, and you know, we can wrap this up in a second. But plain and simple, and to wrap this into one big, pretty ugly bow, they're not putting their best foot forward. The Red Sox are not putting their best foot forward. They're not doing what it takes to try to be the best team possible. That's really what it comes down to with this team right now. You can't justify that to any fan, I believe, right now and say, we're doing what's best for this team to win games because you're not. The best team involves Roman Anthony Major League lineup. The best team probably involves Marcelo Mayer in the Major League lineup. The best team probably involves Rafael Devers playing first base now with Tristan Casas out of the lineup. Like, that is the facts. And I know they're not actually facts, they're opinions, but those are the facts.
Those are the facts based on
based on common sense and not being an idiot. That's what it comes down to. And
that was the most redundant thing you've ever said in your entire life.
Yeah, great. I don't care. But that's what I'm. That's why my meter was at a 5. I don't really see them doing that because they haven't shown that they're going to be willing to do it. So why would I believe that they're going to do it? I think Anthony and Mayer are going to sit down there for at least another month, and we're gonna be sitting around 500. And like you said, the Yankees could go on a run, and all of a sudden we're 6 or 7 games out of first, and now we're sitting here in mid to late June or early July and saying like what are we doing? Anthony's batting .310 with like 15 home runs in AAA, and we're just sitting his ass, wasting his time in AAA, and when he could be helping the team win baseball games. So that's my bullshit for today. Any final Red Sox thoughts before I just pull my hair out?
No, I've vented enough about Cora needing to be fired already. So
I'm usually Mr. Optimistic. I'm a positive guy. So for me to be this negative about like everything that's going on, I think that tells you that things aren't going the way they should. And it's one thing if like there wasn't an answer, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if there wasn't like these guys sitting in AAA and the team just like is underperforming. It was one thing if there's not like clear solutions. And not that, Anthony's going to automatically come up and be a superstar, but like there are clear other options that look to be better options from the eyes of about everybody.
And so when we talk about like, are the fans mostly usually right when the majority of fans feel one way or another? Like, I believe if Roman Anthony came up, he would bat 270 plus. He would play a solid outfield. He would provide power. He would provide good at bats. He would provide basically significantly more than Rafaela is providing to the Red Sox. And part of it, I think, is they gave Rafael this extension, so they think it's maybe embarrassing if they send him down, but you don't have to. Like, send David Hamilton down to AAA. Have Rafaela be your utility player. Like, he just should not be playing every day. So that's it. Yeah. I'm over. I'm over it. Go Celtics. Go Celtics. Go Red Sox. I did want to get into the Billy Belichick thing, but we can save that for next week.
Yes.
I don't think that's going away, so we'll have plenty of time.
Not anytime soon.
Not from here.
No, and we'll have all summer to get into that because, like I said, it's not going away, and I'm sure we'll need to fill in some time in the summer when hockey's over. Oh yeah, speaking of that, Bruins got shafted with the 7th pick. They
absolutely screwed in the draft lottery.
Yeah, because of course I don't even feel that bad for them. I think the hockey demons came because they should have fired Sweeney. But
I was going to say they hang on to Don Sweeney and Cam Neely. This is what you get.
Yeah, they'll probably draft the next Jake DeBrusk 7th overall.
I can go on.
Any final thoughts before we wrap this up? We'll save the state your takes. I didn't think of one for this week. Do you guys have one?
I mean, you gave one.
I don't.
Your state your take was clearly the last hour and 16 minutes.
my state your take.
My state your take of the episode is that the Red Sox are not trying to win baseball games to the best of their ability.
Yeah,
I don't even think that's really a take. I think it's just stating a fact.
Another factual opinion.
Yeah. I don't even think it's anything that's like. I don't think it's disputable. I really don't, and that's the sad part. Like I'm making a take that is really not even disputable because you can't look me in the face and say David Hamilton and Romy Gonzalez are better options than Roman Anthony.
No. McCory will try. He certainly will do that, but he will not be correct.
All right. Any final thoughts, Ben? When are you getting your haircut fixed?
I did a Friday. I'm going to a wedding on Saturday. I did look up, out of plain old curiosity, a projected mock draft for the NHL to see who
NHL. I thought you were going to talk about.
No.
Patriots next year.
Oh no, I've already done like 7 of those. Don't you worry. So I found a Bleacher Report article. Caleb Denoyer, probably not saying that right. Desnoyers. Denoyer. He's French Canadian, so that's probably how it's pronounced. He's a 6'2", 175-pound center, considered one of the top prospects, which, not saying much considering you're drafting 7th overall. Top prospect in the 2025 NHL draft. He's a junior hockey player out of Canada. So we'll see. He's a left-handed shot center, and he is currently projected to go 7th overall to the Bruins.
Yeah, to that I would say, are there any 4th round guys from Charlestown that are projected? Because that's who's going number 7.
Fringe line 4 guys that are going to make it.
Career AHL
minor
player.
Patriots news. It seems like Alonzo Highsmith's son, AJ Highsmith, who was the Titans director of scouting last season, is now the director of pro scouting for the Patriots.
All right.
So he will be joining the staff. He was on the Bills and 49ers scouting staff prior to that. So they got a new name in the room. I don't know. Director of pro scouting, that's a high title.
It is.
That in theory,
wouldn't that be like Matt Groh level? Because isn't Matt Groh director of college scouting?
Yeah, is Matt what is Matt Groh doing? Kind of serious question. What
I don't know.
exactly is he doing?
But I thought you were gonna. I thought you were going to look it up. I did find out that the number 3 projected overall pick is from Boston College.
Okay. So he'll go, number 3. And then, like I said, they'll get a 5th round projected player.
I like that. A 4th line center out of Charlestown.
Yeah, for Charlestown.
Who's currently ripping butts on the red line.
The Bruins love drafting guys in the first round that project as like a 3rd round center.
Oh, it's the Bill Belichick of hockey.
Yeah, they take the safe guy that like has a higher floor where it's like they likely make the big leagues in the NHL, but then like they're just never going to be a high end player, and that's
they're not
why
quite a bust. So you can't.
Yeah, that's why this team has lacked legitimate high end talent from young guys other than Pasternak, and yeah, I mean that's really about it. Like Morgan Geekie is like decent. I don't know.
Yeah.
Go back to the Sergei Samsonov days.
When your entire offense for 20 years comes from one draft in 2006 when they got Marchand, Bergeron, or Marchand and Krejci and someone else, like not doing very good.
No, I mean they have been awful at drafting. That's why they're in the position that they have been in.
Mm-hmm.
What did they do? They kept the guy that's been awful at
drafting.
drafting.
The guy who keeps drafting everybody else from Charlestown. Nice.
Yeah, the recipe to winning guys is the guy that has sucked for the past decade at drafting. We're going to let him continue to draft.
Yeah. Red Sox have the same mentality with Cora. Not drafting, of course, but lineup, and same with Bill. Terrible drafting. You get to keep your job too.
Yep. Yeah, and to your point, Zach, just because you brought up 2006, the 2006 NHL draft / offseason saw the Bruins traded Andrew Raycroft for Tuukka Rask.
Yep.
They drafted Phil Kessel 5th overall, Milan Lucic 50th overall, and Brad Marchand 71st overall.
Pretty good players.
And what do they do? Oh, they trade Phil Kessel away, and then they
crazy in that draft too.
They drafted Tyler Seguin and they traded him away too.
They did not get
banging people's moms. That makes sense.
Yeah, Krejci was not. If Krejci was 06, he was not drafted by the Bruins.
Maybe there was
he might have been around before that.
The same time, yeah.
Anyways, that's gonna do it for this week. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, at this point, the Celtics are basically beyond the Knicks.
Yep.
And the Red Sox stop sucking, and maybe I can give some positive news next week.
Yep. And keeping up with the trend, we'll hope for something to happen, and that can also be the Red Sox being above 500.
Yep.
It sounds like a little too much optimistic here. That's not this podcast. So, all right. Goodbye. Till next week. We'll raise the banner.
Later, boys.
Later.